Hi, welcome back to Future Fast. And once again, we have Paul Resnik with us. And if you have missed the first part of our conversation where he shares his journey, it's very interesting and exciting and some amount of startup talk, a founder's journey. And all of you who are into entrepreneurship, you will understand and even appreciate, and also a lot of takeaways there. And those of you who want to be an entrepreneur, I urge you just go back, listen to that conversation. Very, very practical advice from somebody who's been there and doing it, not just done that. So go get that. And we'll continue in this part of the conversation where we'll talk about uh, what's Paul's new avatar in the tokenization space. So with that, Paul, welcome back to Future Fast. And thank you so much for...
Good day, and as I said last time, hello from the future.
Hello to the future. So, Paul, what got you into tokenization?
There were two phases. Phase one was a couple of years ago. I was at a workshop. I had the good fortune to have a family office, and when I knew nothing about family offices except one of my previous partners had set up a business networking family offices. And he asked me if I would become involved. And I said, well, I'd only become involved in things if I can have a little equity in the process. And so we came to what was a reasonable deal. And I found myself in a world I had never, ever imagined, where people in family offices sit and talk about the two crises in their lives. The first one is what to do with their money, and the second is how to manage their family. And as Richard, my partner, said, when you've met one family office, you've met one family office. And I was at a family office event where we had a member of the family office. So every family office wants to set up something that looks like a funds management operation, as far as I could tell. But sometimes it's a philanthropy they want to share. But there's always a sense of community coming through. And this one was basically introduced me to the blockchain in a way that I hadn't ever recognized before. And I took it. So my background was in accounting. And he described it as an accounting system. And I know accounting systems, they're platforms. And my aha moment was essentially this notion that our challenges in financial services are the silo nature of all of the data that's relevant to making decisions. So you have an insurance silo and a banking silo and an investment silo, and then you have sub-silos. In every organization, they've merged businesses, they've got different units, and data is invariably being corrupted. And the way it plays itself out is mayhem. Huge levels of friction, but utterly normalized. When I saw the blockchain, I went, this is the future of financial services institutions. Now, how did I get to that? I guess 40 years of seeing the rubbish that we work with. And I realized this is the equivalent of when Apple introduced their iPod and said, 1,000 songs in your pocket. And I went, 1,000 tokens in your pocket, some for your insurance, some for your banking, some for your investments. And if it's all in one space, then you can interrogate it. And you can interrogate it for the one thing that I've worked on always was, is this the right thing for you? Suitability. Now, it was suitability that blew up and blows up all of the time. This is not in the extended version of KYC beyond name and address. It's the person's values, aspirations, capacities. And the more informed you are, the better you can match the products and services to their needs. And that's the project that was initiated from that blockchain piece. I saw that and went, aha. Over the next while, I got more and more excited, and I applied some of the things that I've talked to you before about. What's new only engages what's new. Kahneman teaches us that most people want to huddle in system one thinking. I started applying other psychological profiles overlaying the adoption cycle, and could see that these things appear to people predominantly who were open to new ideas. And there's the big five, which I've built into the process. So I got into my mind that to parallel the tokenization of people's financial assets, you needed to have an identity token. And the identity token contained all of the things that were relevant to that person's financial life, that were rules driven. And at its simplest level, it was, if I've got a portfolio of assets, what's the logic of the portfolio? Is it balanced or unbalanced? What are the risks it carries? And as you continue that argument, you can say, well, I've got to do the same with my insurances. Have I got the right mix of insurances? Are they consistent with the risks I'm taking? Or are they just consistent with the opportunism of a salesman or my sense of anxiety? As we move through to credit, have we got a loan that meets our particular capacity for repayment? Are we paying too much, too little? And then the sheer joy of rediscovering the difference between Web 2 and Web 3. Web 2 is where everybody else makes money out of your data. And Web 3 is when you do. And the thing then started to form. If somebody has been kind enough or seen the benefit of having tokenized or allowed themselves to buy tokens, I can help them interrogate that and take it out to the world. So I can, having got that, I can norm it against their peer group. I can say to them, 100 of you, if you would like, I will take out your data anonymized and we'll go shopping and see if one of these big insurance companies would like to buy, because I can reallocate it. So what I saw was literally the tipping point when people give up this notion of separate silos, the notion that they can do the workaround for this. You know, if you've ever had an insurance claim, the insurance company sends you this note, show us the invoices from when you bought it.
Sure.
And you go, I bought it 10 years ago. That company's been merged with 5 companies. When that stuff is tokenized, you have it. It's an NFT. It just has data on it. The immutable nature of a token means that it's a reliable thing for us to be able to use in the future. And then the final piece in this, I realized, when you have your assets tokenized, estate planning changes entirely.
Correct.
Because all of the issues you have with, I call it shoebox accounting. You have all of these certificates all over the place. If you're like 90% of the people, if it's tokenized, the estate plan is literally capable of being planned. You have in your identity token, it says, this was your last will, these are the people it's going to. Have we filled all the legal documents, press a button, and the distribution is done.
No, but what's important in this context is also the recognition or acceptability from a compliance ecosystem as well, right?
Yeah.
So not every place, at least in India, we don't have compliance recognizing it anything beyond an instrument of investment.
Yeah. And
So
so our problem is one of, how can we just, same everywhere. Whatever you've got, people will defend. And sometimes they defend it because it's their job. And sometimes they defend it because it's what we've got. And we really don't need to be stretched. And if I go back to Geoffrey Moore, when you're trying to sell something to somebody who's in the adoption chain of this is different, it will make your job easier, the first response is not necessarily so.
correct.
And so your challenge and my challenge is showing this is a better future. There is nobody worse off in a tokenized world as a class.
Right.
There may be individuals and companies,
Correct.
but in a tokenized world, we are able to bring advice, product, incentive, micro lending, micro saving, everything. This is the single most important change to India since maybe the toilet, if I could put it into context.
Well, while the world knows India and the toilet because Prime Minister of India made sure that pretty much everybody gets the private toilet, and he made it as his primary goal in the first term of his prime ministership. Apart from various other things he did, which was necessary and commendable, but India also has a history for more than a few thousand years of having a very organized system for toilet and sewage system as well, at least for a few thousand years. So that's the irony, right? That's the irony that we know and we still don't have it. So, but that while I agree with you, but coming back, you're completely an outlier, right? Coming from the traditional world of finance, that you just see the opportunity and I don't know if it is right to say the magic of blockchain and tokenization and the possibilities of it. But how do you see that your peers, your colleagues, and your juniors in the financial world, because you spent a lot of time there, that because see, in my experience, I don't see that kind of enthusiasm in them saying that, oh, wow, I see this. So,
I see it as inevitable, but I'm an optimist.
But how do you connect with?
Well, I connect with it as I did before.
Past community.
Okay, so let me. A couple of history lessons. Okay, one is my history lesson, and one is the one I went researching. So I'm intrigued by the car. For lots of reasons, but the history of the car, very simply, is up until the 1890s, in the major cities, there were horses in Europe. Okay, I don't have an Asian perspective, and that meant every morning you'd get up, you'd throw open your windows, and you'd shut them immediately. Why? Give or take, as my research is 100,000 horses. They produce, is India in pounds or kilos? Kilos. Yeah. I've lost your voice.
British system, kilos.
Kilos. Okay, so every horse, 14 to 15 kilos a day of manure.
Yeah.
Now, the whole infrastructure of the city is controlled by that. The car comes along, and the first response is it must not go any faster than the horse because it will frighten them. And the first image we have is a beautiful car with a man beautifully dressed standing in front with a flag so we don't frighten the horses.
Well,
Now, we're in the same position now. We have it with electric cars. We see the momentum, and then we have this counter argument. We say, well, look, this bit of the supply chain is efficient, but we can't get cheap electricity. And we now see it flipped, and now it's coming back. Now, you may not see this as strongly as TikTok provides me, which is my entry point into the world for all of these things. That there's a strong reaction saying that we've mismeasured this. But what we do know, just looking at the history, is the electric car companies will build much better electric cars than the people that are petrol companies trying to build electric cars.
That's already happening, right? I mean, in fact,
Yeah.
most companies are in China who don't come with a history of having built regular cars. And likewise in US itself. Now Tesla's taken over anybody else in the business.
Okay, now we'll go back to the 1890s. There's nobody that had a horse-drawn car that's still got a brand.
Correct.
Okay, so where are we? At the moment, we can happily say there is no organization in India that wants tokenization. None. You, me, and some other people want it for all of the good it will do. So that similar thing has to happen. There has to be an economic event.
You know, unfortunately, it's also pushing a lot of startups from India, outside of India, to mostly Middle East, mostly Dubai, and a few other countries across the globe. Just to give you numbers, I think, was it last year or before last year, I was looking at it, nearly in half a year, 4,500 Indian companies in the Web3 space had registered in Dubai.
So in the long term, you know, there's that lovely question asked of Chu and Lai.
It was last year, Jan to June.
Yeah. So, you know, the question asked of Chu and Lai, what do you think of the French Revolution? And he's reported to have said, it hasn't fully played its way out yet. So what we're talking about is sort of short-termism. What we will see is alternatives emerge. We see it in DeFi, we see it in the things around the edges, and eventually they will knit together. If India doesn't do it, it will become a social outcast because this thing is necessary. What is the reason for it? The massive level of frictions caused by silos. For the vast majority of people, tokenization of their financial affairs removes from them the consequence of their ignorance, of their stupidity, of their gullibility.
I came across a statement where Churchill was criticizing French Revolution, saying it was a very unfortunate thing that happened there. I mean, Churchill, who's identified with democracy because he was a elected politician and a prime minister, actually made comments that French Revolution was an unfortunate event in the history.
Yeah, well, we're all two-faced. Consistency over our lifetime is a rare event. So we're all pragmatists. So my argument is, and I go back to the one we've talked about before, there was very good reason not to want an Earth-centered universe, and there was a very good reason to have a sun-centered universe. It didn't happen overnight. The car, I took, when I was looking at the car argument, I found a bridge in London called Waterloo Bridge. where I could find photographs of the vehicles on the bridge, give or take every 5 years from 1895 to 1930.
Okay.
And I could look at the traffic and go, 1930, mainly cars, but some horses. And back to 1895, where it was predominantly horses and carts. Now, when revolutions come in our thing, they tend to be a little faster now.
Correct.
Once again, I'm terribly ignorant of Indian history, but I know a little bit of Egyptian history because we stole lots from the Egyptians. The British Museum, which is the English colonial shopping space in London.
Only difference is it's not shop. They didn't buy anything. They just stole it.
Yes, they stole it. The Egyptian space, though, is the top left-hand corner when you go in. There isn't that much about India, interestingly enough. The English didn't steal enough to fill up a lot of space.
Build up a lot of private museums.
Did it? But the Egyptian thing lasted almost 4,000 years. Every society since then has got shorter and shorter. Now, how quickly did we go from combustion to electric? How quickly are we moving from...
technically, the way I see it, it was electric to combustion, which happened nearly about 25 years. So now combustion to electric, it's clearly about 75 years.
Yeah. So we know, and we look at the US and we have railroads and roads, and you can see the politics of those things. So yes, it's subject to politics, but the thing about the blockchain is it's global.
Yeah.
This is global. It is not possible for long to have your people at a disadvantage. Now, India's got 1.4 billion people who are going to want to participate.
We already we are already officially on blockchain, right? We already have CBDC here, central bank digital currency. India is already on, and most of us have a CBDC app. So we call it e-rupee, which is actually a digital rupee.
Good.
It's no longer moving in
all of the
currency.
So as in my travels, I can find people in at least US, several places in Asia, Amsterdam. I have a colleague who've tokenized property and tokenized all sorts of things. So we don't have any problem tokenizing things. We just simply have a regulatory government indifference, and governments will come around. So in an open marketplace, so there is an inevitability of this, is all I'm saying.
My understanding of compliance and compliance system is that they always follow business.
Yeah.
So we need more businesses to go about it, then compliance will come around.
And if it's not going to be this, so my thesis goes like this. If businesses choose not to do this,
compliance.
The businesses that will do it will be, in our language, early adopters. Okay, what do we know about business in the long term? It turns into oligopolies. So if you sit and say, I own a chunk of this business, I am not going to participate, you will be a laggard, and a laggard will be dead. Let me take you through. The piece I'm working on at the moment is how do you manage your career in this environment? Do you want to work for an organization? And funds management is a fabulous one because I actually understand it. I'm going to work in an organization that is not going to go anywhere near the blockchain. I am going to put at risk that somebody else will get a fund up at a lower cost with better distribution, and I will be left with what we call legacy funds. No new business, money leaving, and fund managers that want to work elsewhere. So we will have underperforming funds. That's the Darwinian market. If you do not participate early, you guarantee yourself second-class staff, second-class performance, and no interest. That's Darwinian. That's the vulgar Darwinian model. You will not compete because you'll be in these silos. Nobody will want the technology to get your data across. Good. Your technologist will be going to work for somebody who does.
Right. Well, Paul, who, in your opinion, within the prism or spectrum of financial services could well be the early adopters for tokenization?
So I look at three bits. I look at people in financial services, and the most obvious are the big global fund managers. They have the most to lose. And all of them are playing in the game.
Correct. Yeah.
All of them are there, and they have tokenized funds, and they've done it with liquid funds at the moment. Okay. The one that's made the biggest announcement is BlackRock.
Right, right.
And BlackRock are saying, yes, as I synthesize the argument, we were just an active manager and we made three bets. We went passive, we went ETF, and this is our third bet. You're going to bet against us. Okay, so there you've got leadership there. Who needs this? It becomes the next thing. Any retail bank wants and needs tokenization.
Do you think retail banks will be early adopters in this because they are highly compliance ridden, right? Because
and this is about compliance. This is about suitability. The driver for me in this is this product the right product for this person? Now, the way it works at the moment is somebody in the organization sells somebody something, and then a year later we discover it's not appropriate for that person's needs. Why? Because the compliance is in a different silo to the product.
Right. Well, recently, I think day before, Citi and Fidelity launched tokenized money market.
Yeah, that would. So what you'll see is anybody that's got product and anybody that's got distribution are going to be friends. And I worked for Citibank for a while, so I'm an ex-Citi banker. And they tried bank assurance, doing all of the things. They own Travelers and American Express and a whole swag of things, and they could not manage it. They did not have the control, the compliance, the nous at the very top. Let me go back to what I said earlier. Every individual will have their assets tokenized. That means it can be interrogated. On my identity token, it says it will be negotiated until you tell us differently. We will help make sure that you don't overweight assets in any one class or insurances without nudging you, talking to you, delaying the piece. What you have is, in a sense, is the possibility for benign paternalism, which tokenization, because suitability is now. It is not delayed. It is delayed suitability that goes, we didn't know we had this mis-selling. And you can see it everywhere. You don't have class actions in India, which is unfortunately keeps this stuff very quiet. But I cannot imagine that we won't see the equivalent of the massive mis-selling in American banks of various forms of financial products. The most vivid one is the UK. The UK has insurance that will be, I'm sure, in India called PPI insurance, which basically insures somebody using a credit card debt for payments to the bank who issued the credit card for the following 12 months. Okay, you would imagine this could be done so well. The settlement in the UK for mis-selling, that is selling to people who had no insurable interest or were not consistent with the policy documents, the settlement the last time I searched was £52 billion.
Wow.
Now, that's just one class of insurance in one country that claims the Westminster system of government. And in Australia, the equivalent of that, all of the banks bought everything to do bank assurance, missold. Somehow the banks got called to a government inquiry. It was on TV in 2018. They were found to be charging ongoing service fees to dead people. They owned the life insurance companies of Australia. Do you think their data goes from where we register deaths to the life companies to somewhere else? No, it didn't happen. They sold those businesses. Everything was sold. Everything. The life companies, the financial planning businesses, the asset management businesses, the platforms, they got out of everything. Sometimes they gave it away to build back some integrity and reputation. Now, that vulnerability is everywhere. Australian banks are not worse governed than anywhere else. Their management is not any more corrupt. Now, so there's an inevitability here. There's real-time suitability. This is a global market. Whoever doesn't do it is going to be, the crude world is not going to be able to compete for customers, staff, or capital.
Right.
Now, you sit there and go, all of my mates running the big banks and the big fund managers and the big insurance companies, we're all going to say no. Requires one in each case, or some new player to come in and say, hey, we'll do this. Now, you know how easy it is to tokenize assets. I know how easy it is to make an environment where it's suitable.
Right.
We're two people. We bootstrap. You bootstrap. Now, if we're doing it, how many other people know what to do?
So
how many billionaires have you got in India that might go, hey, this is the biggest market on the planet. We run a risk part of our portfolio. Maybe we should throw 100 million at something like this and see what we learn. Yeah.
Well, recently we did have one of the co-founders of Infosys, the present chairman of Infosys, talk about tokenization, but I was not too enthused by the representation of it because it looked like the whole narrative was still coming from the old guard ecosystem. So there is a fear. Or what do you think about it? Because I saw that, is that deliberate? Because I was wondering, it is not possible that he does not understand it, because he's been a through and through technology guy and he's a brilliant man. He's made it to the history books of India and perhaps global, not just for being a co-founder of Infosys, but he was also the man who drove Aadhaar, universal ID for Indians. He was a man who drove it, implementation of it, which is the biggest of its kind in the world, right? So he has 2 counts of records in the history book, and this could have well been the third, in my opinion, him driving tokenization. But the narrative he presented, it looked like it is coming out of somebody who's speaking from, representing Indian Central Bank.
Yeah. I don't know. I can only
So there
look
is
at.
a possibility that this could well be taken over by these kind of narratives, because
Yeah,
if it is presented by somebody like him, more
yeah, yeah.
people will buy in, but may
Well, of
take away
course.
the real value out of it.
Well, we know that, don't we? We know that people behave quite differently. One of the learnings in psychology is people are unbelievably complicated. Kahneman tells me that they really they want to behave like a cadre rather than be in system one. And when you've made your money, you start off radical, you become, I have no notion. I don't know what the driver is, but I do know that when you have something that has so much economic advantage in a global marketplace, it's only a matter of time. Indians have the largest export of people, the diaspora. All of those people will want to have the benefits of transfer of assets between generations, between each other, done with the speed and security that the blockchain provides. Now, it will either be the official government or the alternative that will emerge. India already has, if I understand it, a large percentage of the value of property is in cash, as opposed when transfers occur.
Well, not really cash. That was a suspect, but gold for sure.
Okay, so we already know
gold is perhaps the largest compared to
Yeah.
anywhere else in the world. Even what governments hold.
So what you can see is people will find a workaround, and we will have an unofficial gold token, an official gold token, and you'll have an identity here and here, and once you become international, it's difficult. Now, you can put arguments to the contrary. For me, there is no purpose for a contrary argument. I'm alive for this period of time. I have, in my world, sat with every major change since the 80s in bringing personalization to financial matters. I introduced with Jeff the first global risk profiling tool, and we applied it to investments, and some of our customers applied it to insurances. I'm continuing that tradition of saying, when I now look at a platform, the platform for your data is an identity token. That's the wallet, if you will. These things are parallel.
Right.
They're just storages of data which can be interrogated, reported on. And it's that standardization that rewards everything. It brings down the price. So now, if you stand as we represent the farmers, you'll want to tokenize the things on the farm.
Right.
You'll want them to save so that they're not going to be liabilities on the public purse. You'll want them, if there is a benefit, in having divisible assets for the land. Now, I don't know enough, but I do know the huge number of city buildings that have 10 buyers because the amounts are too large.
Well,
I know.
As much as okay, you are I'm as well as much of an optimist you are. I think I also think I'm a huge optimist. I do believe this is all going to happen, and no government can stop it, and they can't even delay it for too long. unlike previously, a lot of technologies were delayed, even into adoption in India as well. But I don't think this is something any government can afford to delay for too long. So, given that, what do you think could be the challenges in a global adoption going forward?
Well, there are the big challenges of just the amount of power that is going to be used. There's clearly the fear of security. But those are the only two practical things. And do you think there's something else?
No,
what have you got?
I want to pick your mind. See, there are some arguments about the global giants, financial giants, right? Who have already jumped into tokenization now.
Yeah.
Which is actually also what you mentioned, right? That the arrival of these kind of giants with $1 trillion size getting into tokenization. Do you see the fear of some of the people who are actually expressing that fear? Any legitimacy in that fear that the tokenized world being taken over by the big rocks of the world?
Oh, I think that there is this is an early adopters game. This is FOMO, fear of missing out.
No, but them taking over.
So, yeah. And so you'll say, if I don't do it, they will.
No, but these are big guys, right? See, if
they are big.
Who's not so big, okay. But if a big player takes over, then what will be the playground for me at all? That is what
exactly right. Yeah. I've gone through the same thing. So I've said in my world, there's nothing I play the cards I have, which is one of my favorite lines. I understand identity. Yeah, declaratory. Now, my metaphor for this is a story. If I share this story, if I was brought back to 1895, and I read these reports in the paper that horses are going to be replaced by cars. With everything I now know, what should I invest in? What is of all of the things, should I invest in a car company, a tire company, a road company, an oil company? What should I invest in with everything I know?
At that time, more than the oil, it was electric. So even electric company.
Okay. Now, my answer would be you would invest in car parks.
Car parks, okay.
And the car parks in a city near the central station, near where the offices
are. Can
I
interpret that as car park as real estate, you mean?
Yeah. And why? But not just real estate that was necessary as a destination. It's not real estate per se.
Yeah, where it matters, the location.
Where it matters. Yeah. And so my logic says...
So what would be the car park in today's world in this context then?
The wallet.
Okay.
The identity token and the wallet.
Okay.
So that's where So if I may just continue my little argument, I'm working to do this in the blockchain. I can't make a living in the blockchain like you. And I'm saying to people, I can future-proof your business. I can prepare you because at the moment, even in India, and even more so, it's only name and address. That's all you have. And most of those, they'll be misspelt, that you won't even be able to put the two together. That's my conclusion. The only cards I play, I can't compete with BlackRock. I can't compete with a bank. I can barely pay my bills. I have to work my way through the thing I can play, which is this is the future. And it won't be what we're talking about today has not emerged anywhere that I can see. Our conversation is as rich about how this works as anything I have read.
Mm-hmm.
Now, given the choice, guys, you can either have a series of shoeboxes and look what that does. Look what that does in terms of applying AI to what's all of that data. How much more efficiently can we help people through their lives? And you know, this notion of there's money as a means to an end and an end in itself. Now, as a means to an end, this stuff enables people to have choices.
Right.
Yeah, at the simplest level. What percentage of people find money interesting? Very few. Many of them want it as a means to an end.
Correct.
So that's where I've got to in my argument.
One more question around the same thing what I asked earlier. Earlier was a question about BlackRock and how serious a threat, how serious a fear of BlackRock's entry. But how would you, if you were to talk to a retail bank, right, who in turn has to talk to its central bank?
I can only reflect when I went to talk to the FCA, which is the regulator in the UK, and I have, as you can imagine, I have a huge agenda of things I'm interested in talking about, retirement products, particularly as an area. And our conversation was until I introduced the notion of tokenization. Now, these were what we'd call senior managers.
Okay.
They all leant forward. Okay. They talked about wanting this to proceed from their perspective. Okay. Now, let's go back to BlackRock. BlackRock is a funds management. It has very little reliable distribution. But it does deals for distribution.
But technically also they also have significant control over a lot of other financial institutions who in turn manage this.
They have some influence, but they're big. But you need a monster to push things along. Yeah, and they're likely to push things in their own favor.
So they will obviously do that. But you think that is good for the tokenization, at least the our personal agenda, your agenda of pushing tokenization and my agenda of pushing tokenization. Do you think it's good for us that BlackRock is becoming the flag bearer of tokenization?
Why are they the flag bearer, do you think?
They are the biggest, and they say that to do tokenization. So
if you and I say it,
we've been saying it. Nobody's giving a heed to it, right?
So given so what do we know about media, and what do we know about? And I go back to what's the easiest thing to do is say, I need to have a message that people will live with. Okay. Because they're not going to invest in system 2 thinking. They're not going to think through. Well, BlackRock to some people is the height of evil, and to the others, it's the height of commercial common sense. We have in the middle Vanguard, which is a mutual. Now, isn't that an intriguing thing to find in the middle of this exercise?
There's a lot of arguments about Vanguard and BlackRock also having mutual holding in each other.
So we look at that and we say, okay, what have they got at the moment? Most of this revolution will happen, I think, in unlisted assets, not the listed ones, because that's where the most of the benefit will go.
I actually keep making an argument that the whole public listing ecosystem will crumble with tokenization, because this by itself can be a far better, effective, and secure ecosystem from handling public participation in investments.
Yeah, so you could put an argument that BlackRock is doing it clearly for their own interest. But if back to their announcement, and the logical thing is every public company share will be a token.
Which
So,
is a very, very strong possibility, which is what you also mentioned, right? In an unlisted space, the similar thing can be achieved with tokenization.
Okay,
Without
so none of these companies are capable of being turned on their head. So let me tell you what happens. You'll go to the I call it the activity token shop.
Okay.
And in it, you will see a business with my name on it that says, we will look to see if your assets meet your needs. We will do a review of your portfolio, and we will do that instantly, free. If you want us to give you an implementation and tell you what to buy and sell and to review your tax treatment, we will charge you $5 per transaction. Now, in the midst of that, this undermines all of the asset allocation models that are out there because they're glued together at the moment. If you want an asset allocation, you pay for it and you pay, pick a number, 20 basis points, 15 basis points. A whole bunch of people like me will turn up and say, here's my freemium product. We've back tested it over the last 150 years. And it will cost you virtually nothing. Why? I have no infrastructure costs. Nothing. Just what's here. So I can build an app. I can go, AI will help me build it. It's got some algorithms in it. We've got open source algorithms the same way as we've got everything else.
Well, we actually already built a product for this. So that's what you triggered. That's what I was about to say, that I think there's a business that we can actually talk about and actually go about doing.
There we go. So my argument is there is nothing standing that will withstand this change. It'll be the same as who are the people that built great coaches, and they didn't do well when the petrol engine came. When the electric car came, the transition didn't work. BlackRocks of this world, I'm not saying they'll be obliterated, but they're just as vulnerable. This is a fundamental disempowerment of authority. This is the promise of Web3.
Well,
service the client, and Web2 bullies will be humbled.
Well, I hope it'll be as optimistic a message for all those who have these doubts. I just want to now get you to talk about, you've been also investing in startups. So I want to understand, how do you pick a startup to invest with?
Well, often I start an answer like this, typically badly.
Okay. I'm trying to get a method out of it, and you're straight away putting the madness into it.
Okay, so what do you invest in? First of all, you invest in people. And then I look for scalability. Can I scale it to be a global business? There's as much work in a little business as a big business. Is it technology? Because that gives scale. Preferably, it should not be over-regulated because regulation kills. So my favorite thing I'm invested in at the moment organizes weddings.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And just to and it parallels financial services. So I'll just explain the parallels.
Wait, which location, which geography in
Australia? It's in Israel. It's in Israel.
Okay. Why? Yeah. Okay, just a question. You also talked about scalability. Why would you pick a country whose population is less than the city I live in?
Well, yes. Essentially because they're the practical things. I know the people family. It's a technology hub, and they have to survive. Yeah, Jews have to survive with what they've got, and that's what we've done for 3,000 years. So, but let me tell you what it does. It says you can go and organize your own event. You can go in as you would go into a trading platform or a marketplace. You can buy this share, this share, this share, and this share. Do it all yourself. We have at the other end, which says, here are some, do you like this, the look of this event? Tell me how many people you've got coming and the dates. And we will give you an instant quote of every item you need, from air conditioning, tents, stage, music, faster than you can order a hamburger. Now, this is in an industry where things are still on spreadsheets. Now, all I'm saying is there is an example, unregulated, but exactly the same stuff. You have a need, I have a need to organize all of that. I only do this once or twice in my life.
But scalability is a challenge because it is operation intensive, right? I mean, as much as what you can do from a customer point of time, see, this is what I would regard as a convenience tech, right? I mean, from a customer point of view, it gives you convenience, like Uber, like yeah,
but no different from what we're talking about,
which is very good for a customer. But at the back end, right, stitching up that, identifying multiple vendors, the operations,
not hard,
the operations heavy part, right?
No, these are existing businesses, and so our proposition is this.
Oh, okay. So this is more like an aggregator of all the service providers.
Yeah.
Okay.
We do a front end and a back end to a traditional business, and there are thousands of them that go into an event. You know, people traveling from overseas, people needing doctors, people that that want to taste rare whiskey. We provide a centralized piece. Now, we start in where we start. We play the cards we've got. But there is not a country in the world.
Oh, there are a few such businesses in India as well.
Good. I would hope so. You're a technology business, but we've got a bunch of AI, and this is a bootstrap. You know, there's nothing in this other than smart. Now, here's the interesting challenge. We built half of this in Israel at war with everybody for the last 50 years, and the other half in Ukraine, which has been at war for the last 2 years. So where do you get the smart people from? Not necessarily from places where. So there's the day-to-day challenge of life in building it. So there's an example of what I would do. I find something, I like platforms. Data is a platform.
So do you invest as an individual?
Sometimes I invest as an individual. Sometimes I'm on the board as a NED, a non-executive director. Okay. I always like to have a little bit. Sometimes I earn the little bit. But basically, what did I learn? It doesn't matter. If I stood with you and said for 1,000 years, this is a good idea, who would listen? Even when I say, look, here's the evidence I get it right. Look, I made money for people. Bear with me a moment.
Yep.
Now, I'm sorry, I've mislaid. I had somebody at the front. Can you remind me where we were?
Yeah, well, you were talking about that you like platforms, and I was also
Yeah. So everything in my world is a platform, and the platform predominantly it can be anything,
right,
and it is data in
right,
and reports out.
right,
Everything I do is around personalization,
right.
and it says everybody in the platform will be rewarded by saying this is how I would like my reporting to be,
Mm.
so that my business is better informed than people not on this platform.
Right. And
So,
do you like to pick your target investment targets based on what you can do beyond giving them money? Is that a criteria for you?
oh,
You need to be having some role to play there.
um, I'm arrogant enough to believe that nobody understands hyper personalization as well as me.
Okay.
And so you play the cards you have. I could invest in a billion things and the funds. The prime example, if I went to BlackRock and said, this is what I've got, they would laugh at me.
Mm.
So I do. So my fundamental belief is always there are three things. What you do to be successful has everybody who touches it needs to go well.
Mm-hmm.
To do that, you've got to be brave.
Mm.
And the third is the world should be a better place for what you do. So they're the first criteria. And then it's predominantly platform. The platform introduces buyers and sellers, and you can see the history of platforms. You know, I've worked in that history.
Mm.
I did it institutionally, I advised to it, I consulted to it, I ran it, I exited it from it. And all along, back to what the present value of the future income stream
Mm.
values something more highly than somebody who is in full transactional mode or a part transactional mode.
Mm.
An institution that says we cross sell and upsell, and our clients are delighted and look at their behavior, and we've done that in a manner compared to the marketplace is viewed as being of value. So I have a thing called the Suitable Advice Institute, which is my ideological space. And from it, these other things emerge. Platforms, product advice, consulting advice, and the stuff I do with Stu, which started off, as I explained before, he worked with me to take over my technical proof of what I did was both did what it promised to do and did it with reliability, which is the fundamental notion of psychometrics. I continue to apply. And we now use open source psychometrics, if you will, using the big 5 personality traits because there's 80 years of data to rely on.
And
Yeah.
when do you see this going live?
We have, so this was built for an identity token. And we've just said, well, we're now taking it back to the other side. If you say, when we shift, imagine it's a river, we're taking it back to the other side and we're saying to legacy people, yeah, this is the future. Yeah. We can future-proof your suitability. Your suitability now is rubbish. Because of the silo effect. What we can do, we can create a new, we'd call it an AI lake for your business with your client's data, your product. So look, if I got a few more minutes just to give you a definition,
please.
Okay. So suitability has 5 components. And I run through them and I explain them. Know your client, know your product, show how the product meets the client's need. The fourth one is get the client's informed consent to proceed. And the fifth one is keep on doing that forever because things change. That's how you create a wall, a moat around the client. So KYC in India just means name and address.
Oh no,
from
it's
my
a lot more
getting
than
more
that today.
good. So I look at it and say,
it's also including that UID, universal ID, what I mentioned about.
yeah.
Yep.
But I'm looking at taking into account how they process information, how they make decisions, what level of risk they could emotionally cope with. When I put that into a data lake with what they do, you're not acting consistently with that, or, whoa, look what's happened to this group of people. We know, and I've come from a background, I would argue, of looking for empirical evidence of alpha, outperformance. I can't find it. There's nothing that I can see at a customer level that says it's sustainable. It comes and goes. So I'm left as a sort of de facto vanguard person saying, there's my evidence. I can get those things for almost nothing. I can get a global ETF for 2 bits, 3 bits. Some people do it for nothing. Fidelity does it for nothing. Why? Because it gives them scale on their other bits, and it puts some clients in their infrastructure. So investment is already commoditized. We can see it. There's the thing. All of these big managers will go. Now, people like BlackRock are halfway into defending it because they've already gone passive. But for the rest of them, they're dead. The only future they have is to tokenize early because the competition will be so great. I want to be the 8th active fund manager on Indian equities in somebody's portfolio. Oh, come on. Impossible, because look at the duplication. If it's in a fund,
right,
you'll be buying one stock and selling another. So the whole ETF structure is dead. Even that. Holding the things directly, you will just buy one asset allocation of the direct equities. Initially, they will be listed in one thing, and there'll be another pool of private equity, as we call it at the moment. And that will be full of all sorts of different assets that we never thought of, because we don't have to go through producing accounts that cost $1 million a year to produce, to provide not a great deal of information, because the accounting's wrong, as you know.
Well, if you were to give an advice to people to move from their Web 2 world to Web 3 world, do you want to give an elevator pitch to them as why they should? This is a time. I mean, the reason I'm saying elevator is that our whole conversation is about it. So if you can.
I don't know enough. Remember, I'm only interested in outcomes. So maybe I can reverse the challenge. If there's anybody listening to this that thinks they can work with us, I would be delighted. I can't find those people. They don't come to me. Sorry, I can't find them because they're hidden. I have a line which I learnt, I guess, from my unsuccessful walking around the world. I ended up selling my product in 20 countries.
Wow.
I only sold to early adopters. Early adopters make up 2 or 3%. They're the brightest people. They're the most adaptable people. And they say to me always, we'll make this work in what we've got. The other 97% saying, oh, can you make it one question? And can you de-risk the decision for me? And can we not pay you?
Yes.
Yeah. So I only work with early adopters. They don't have big marketing machines. I can either be a salesman or a seller.
Well,
I'm not a salesman, so I can
what,
only be a
why
seller.
don't you give out a message of motivation for these guys if they can't come in as early adopters, but they need to come in as late adopters at least for their own relevance?
Well, once again, I can only do the integrations for them. I can de-risk it by saying, I am going to build a data aggregation platform.
Mm.
That's what I'm building. It starts with my inputs, which are around personality. I need the outputs are essentially either instructions on how to construct a portfolio or to buy something and review it. That's all I'm doing. That's underway. That's what I'm building in India at the moment. Now, I look at all of those bits and I say, who's got this data? And there's lots of people that have data. We're working our way through. I think we understand what's required. We don't have any parters on the ground in India. You can see so many people. I can only say if anything resonates with anybody, talk to Parter, talk to you. You only talk to me. I don't know if you're starting up and you're in this space, we should at least be talking to each other. You may have some insights that I don't. You'll certainly have more knowledge of the technology and the regulation and other pieces. I'm not that person. I am simply on a life journey that started at the 87 crash that said, how can we make things better for end consumers? And my current resting place is the blockchain and tokenization. Tomorrow I might discover the next one, and people will be battering me and saying, I remember I was actually in Jaffa, in Israel, and I bumped into somebody from Australian business. And when I explained what I was doing, she said, oh, you are a pest. You're solving problems that nobody else can even see. And yeah.
And what did you call you? You're
a pest.
Why would that be a pest? I mean,
because she was a director of 3 businesses that were doing fine, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't. I'm not a salesman. I'm a seller. People have to find me. As I said earlier, you turn up, I say yes to everything. I talk to everybody. Right. I need to be disciplined, but I don't know what else other than to inspire people. There is an inevitability about this. It's not that it's new. It is a logical extension of authority moving closer to the end customer. And you can see it in that thing I think I talked about yesterday, but if I may, this is once again, this is a European perspective. Power was with the church. The Bible was written on parchment. Introduction of the book at first was to publish and make the Bible available to more people. But that opened up the market to other people to write books.
Yeah.
That moved on to, well, we can make temporary books. They're called pamphlets. And bigger pamphlets we call newspapers. And newspapers communicated, and then we moved on to radio and film and then TV. And in each case, there were influencers. The church lost its power of influence with the introduction of the book. Influencers then became, in my world, the European world, were became men with opinions. We've just seen how they play out in the American election. Rich people influencing other people. The fascinating piece now is we're about to shift. The primary influences are parallel to the people they're talking to. That's what you see. Authority is not big, it's diminishing. Now, I don't know what those egos will be like when I'm a 21-year-old and I get going to be an influencer and I discover they'll be just as bad as everybody else. But that's where I think we are now. And this is a similar thing with platforms. We're moving closer to the end customer and personalizing a message for them. I can make it absolutely, I can construct with somebody exactly a portfolio that's consistent with their values and tell them the level of risk they're taking compared to a traditional portfolio with everything that currently exists, and leave them to make an informed decision or not to proceed.
Well, perfect. And I do believe there's a huge opportunity here, and while I also look forward to explore possibilities of collaborating, I wish all the very best for you and your team.
Thank you.
In making this. And I think we need more success in this space for more businesses to come up and thrive. So
yeah,
it's very important that each one succeeds. So I wish you more success for that.
Thank you. And from my perspective, as I travel around the world, when I first got to India, I came on investment tour. I stayed for another week. I come back as regularly as I possibly can. And why? Because it has this sense of wanting to be successful. It's not true of anywhere else.
True.
So I'd be delighted if we can get going. What we're saying is, don't get stranded. Don't get stranded in a stranded business.
Yep.
Don't get stranded in a career that you can't manage. Don't get stranded writing technology in the old space, because it's going to diminish. You know, it's like being, how can we put it? It's like being a papyrus specialist. Yeah, the publishing came along. There's still role for people to write on leather, but it's a diminishing role every year.
Oh yes, totally.
So that here ended the lesson.
Thank you, Paul. Well, to the audience and listeners, I hope you found this conversation as exciting as it has been for me. And please do go and share this conversation with all those people you think will find it useful. And also, we have the coordinates to follow Paul and his work. So you can follow, you can connect. Like I said, you want to reach out, please do reach out as well. He's very quick in responding as well. So follow it up and come back soon, because we will try to get Paul's perspective on future. I mean, we did talk about a lot of future because as such, you probably have realized that we are already in a portal. So we are talking to the future with Paul. Since I'm in Bangalore and he's 5.5 hours of ahead of in time, and we are sharing a present time in this portal. So you have enjoyed your time in this portal. So come back and see where this portal takes you further, because Paul is going to talk about his perspective in the future, because as such, he lives in the future. So with that, thank you so much. Until we meet again, enjoy the ride. And Paul, once again, thank you so much for opening the portal and also sharing it, sharing your perspective and the work that you're doing and the possibilities of it, which is personally, I'm very excited. So thank you so much once again.
And can I thank you for the opportunity to share it with everybody. It's been a real delight. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you.